Wonderful. All right, so welcome everyone from TheDream.Us. We are really excited to have our partner Social Finance with us today to talk about the Dreamer Graduate Loan Program that was started last year. And we're going to have about an hour. We're going to try to end at the hour. So if you have any questions, please, write them down or put them in the chat, and we'll have some time for that. So now I'd like to turn it over to Danielle from Social Finance.
Thanks, Gabby.
It's going to be me, Gabby. It's Beba.
Wonderful. Beba, go ahead.
Yeah.
Introduce
Okay.
yourself, please.
Thank you, Gabby. Okay, so hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time to letting us introduce you to this session. We wanted to kick off this workshop with the agenda that we plan to cover during today's session. So first, we would like to give you an overview of the supportive services the program offers, as well as a general overview of the actual Dreamer Graduate Loan Program. So what is the eligibility criteria, the terms of the potential loan, etc. In addition, we wanted to cover with you key loan terminology so that you familiarize yourselves with it and can determine whether a loan is right for you. And lastly, we have left some time at the end, as Gabby said, for Q&A so that we can answer any questions you may have. So with that said, we'll dive into the supportive services section, and I'll pass the word to Gabby back to introduce the graduate scholarship program.
Right, so we have really exciting news for all of you. We are announcing that we are going to have a graduate scholarship program, and the program is going to be available to those that are actually taking out loans to fund their graduate studies. So if you are a Dream.Us alumni, have effectively graduated with your bachelor's degree and now are in a graduate degree program and have taken out a loan, you will be eligible to apply. So you do have to have a loan that is at least $5,000. Genoveva is going to talk about what are some of the loan caps. So the minimum at least is $5,000. The scholarship amount is going to be an up to $10,000. You can receive $5,000, $7,500, or $10,000 for the 2022-2023 academic year. And the amounts is going to be based on your loan size. And then the other thing is that this scholarship is going to open on June 1st. So you do need to have gone through the process of receiving the loan to be able to apply to the scholarship. It's going to close August 15th. So hopefully that gives everybody enough time to go through the process of applying for your loan and getting information needed. And then once you send over your application, we'll be able to see who's eligible and start granting these scholarships. So just want to let you know that we'll send out more information, but we wanted to start with great news, which is we have this graduate scholarship program. And the goal for this program is to be able to help you lower your loan debt amount that you have. So hopefully the way it's going to work is that either the scholarship is going to cover funds that the loan is not covering, or if there is overfunding, that the institutions would then send back money to the loan company for whatever amount you are overfunded, so that you don't have, such big loan debt later on. You will be able to apply to this every year that you are in school, that you are taking out loans. So let's say you are in a medical school program and you have 4 years in that program and you take out loans every year of your program, you'll be eligible to apply every year that you take out a loan. So we'll be sending out more information. So please make sure that you're checking your emails for this information on the graduate scholarship program. Okay, over back to you, Beba.
Thank you, Gabby. So moving along, another supportive service for students that the Dreamers Graduate Loan Program offers is a one-on-one financial coaching with an organization called Change Machine. So this coaching is offered to all scholars that are interested in attending graduate school and has a very accessible format, given that it's one-on-one, so it's individual, it's completely free, and it's virtual, so you can do it from home. So Change Machine coaches will be able to individually support you in thinking about the return on investment of obtaining a graduate degree, address any financial challenges you may have to finance those studies, and explore the financing options that you have available. So including navigating student loans and how you can manage that debt, both while in school and in the future. So an important note that we wanted to let you know is that if you are indeed planning to take out a loan for the 2022-2023 academic year, attending this one-on-one session is the first step in the application process. So please be sure to schedule an appointment before loan applications open mid-May. So how can you schedule that appointment? As I mentioned, coaching is virtual. So you can schedule your appointment online through a tool called Calendly. You should actually have already received the link to this in an email from TheDream.Us. Or you can also schedule the appointment by calling the toll-free number indicated in this slide in the red box at the bottom right corner. So you should be aware that the Calendly tool only shows availability 3 weeks out from the current date. So if you go in and not see any availability for the upcoming days, please go back the next day or a few days later, and you will see open slots become available, okay? Okay, now let's go ahead and walk you through an overview of the actual loan program. All right, so first off, we did want to introduce the key principles underlying the Dreamers Graduate Loan Program. The main goal of the program is to enable all of you to attend graduate school and achieve your professional goals with manageable debt. And you may ask how we try to do that. First off, we try to support you in obtaining graduate degrees that prepare you for well-paying careers with advancement potential. In second place, we have identified institutions and graduate degree programs that prepare students for in-demand jobs with starting salaries that are high enough to support the debt burden that students take on to attend graduate school. Thirdly, our aim is to minimize that debt burden. So a way to do this is by providing the Dream.Us scholars with loans that have an annual percentage rate, or APR, as we will call it from now on in this presentation. The annual percentage rate of the program will be based on the federal Grad Plus loan program, which is lower than most private loans. We also want to keep the program as simple as possible for you, given that we know that taking out a student loan can be quite overwhelming. And we want to make sure all of you understand exactly what the program entails before you take out a loan and what's expected of you. And finally, there is a paid forward component of the program. And this means that a portion of students' repayments are actually reinvested into the loan fund to enable us to finance those for future students. So to summarize, our primary objective is to support all of you to attend graduate school and achieve your professional aspirations, but to do so with manageable debt. That's very important to us. So getting into the actual loan program, there are eligibility requirements for students as well as for degrees and institutions. So starting with students, you must either have DACA or TPS immigration status, be the Dream.Us alumni, be accepted into an eligible graduate degree program. We'll get into this shortly. Have a social security number and be a resident of an eligible state. So on that eligible state point, I'm just going to quickly reference the next slide here and explain that state eligibility is based on your state of residence at the time of loan application, not the state of your school. So currently the states that you see listed inside the box are ineligible So if you live in any of these locations, you will unfortunately be unable to obtain a loan through the program at this current point in time. Okay, coming back on student eligibility, there are a number of credit knockout criteria. Even though we won't ask you for the credit score, there are a number of credit knockout criteria that would result in ineligibility for a loan. So students who have defaulted on any loan in the past, students who have more than one account with previous or current report of being more than 60 days past due, students who have collection items, liens, or judgments that exceed $500, but this is not including medical debt, or students that have been currently or previously involved in bankruptcy proceedings. All of these will be ineligible for a loan under this program. So having said this about student eligibility, let's continue on to discuss eligible degree programs and institutions. As I mentioned before, our aim is to provide loans to students in order to study graduate degrees that will lead to jobs with starting salaries high enough to allow a student to repay their debt reasonably, comfortably, and sustainably. So we have set up a program eligibility to try and protect against students from becoming overburdened by debt after their graduation. So how have we tried to do this? Well, looking at federal loan program guidance around how much student loan debt is reasonable for a student to undertake, we've arrived at a debt to income ratio threshold of 15%. So what does this mean? This means that if the average annual expected loan repayment for a given degree is less than or equal to 15% of the average expected income someone will earn with that degree, then that program is eligible. If this is not yet like completely clear for you, don't worry, we'll actually go over how to exactly calculate debt income ratio shortly in the next slides. So we will make sure that this point is clear to all of you. So based on this criteria, there is a full list of eligible degrees for the loan program, which you can actually look up on the Dream.Us website. This is under the Scholar Hub, and from there you can navigate over to graduate loans, and there is a link where you can see the full list there. And the last piece on eligibility is around institutions. So for this, we use historic cohort default rates to assess whether an institution successfully prepares students for careers in their chosen field. And just so you are aware and you know, cohort default rates measure the percentage of students that take out loans to finance their education and who have defaulted or otherwise been unable to repay their loans. So we want this rate to be as low as possible. And for that reason, in order to be eligible, institutions must have a historic cohort default rate less than or equal to 8%. Although we want to point that the Dream.Us partner institutions with cohort default rates between 8 to 12% may be eligible pending an additional review with the Dream.Us staff. And as well as like the list of eligible degrees, the full list of eligible institutions is also available on the Dream.Us website. And we have already covered this slide. Okay, so with that said, we are going to move on to go over the key aspects of the loan program. So starting with the key terms on the top left, the loan program will have a fixed interest rate. That is, the rate charged on the loan for borrowing that money will remain the same throughout the length of the loan. In the Dreamers Graduate Loan Program, the APR, which we were mentioning before, that is the annual percentage rate, is the same as the interest rate. And this is because outside of the interest rate, there are no other fees or costs charged to borrowers. So basically APR is interest rate plus costs or fees. Given that we don't have any costs or fees in this program, then APR is equal to interest rate. For the 2022-2023 academic year, the Dreamers Graduate Loan Program's APR will be based on the federal Grad Plus Loans APR, as we introduced before. And this and the federal program's APR will be determined in May. So that's when we will know which APR will apply to our program as well. Just so that you are aware and have a reference in mind, although this will change. For the past academic year, this rate was 7.2%. And it's also worth noting that APRs are reset each year, as with the federal Grad Plus loan program, which means that the APR for loans taken out in subsequent years may be different from this future year's APR. Okay, repayment period, loan terms. So loans taken out under the Dreamers graduate loan program will have either 10 years or 20-year repayment periods. The repayment period will depend on the expected debt to income ratio of a student. That is the expected debt load relative to expected post-graduation income. So, for example, if a 10-year repayment period results in a debt to income ratio greater than 15%, the student will automatically have a 20-year repayment period set. And repayment periods begin 6 months after graduation. This is your grace period. Between graduation and the 6 months following, that's your grace period. So in terms of how much you can borrow, I'm moving on to the red box on the bottom right corner. The minimum loan amount is $5,000, but this amount may be higher based on state regulations. So having that in mind is for the minimum amount, the maximum loan amount can vary by degree. So for each degree, there is a maximum annual loan amount, which students cannot exceed in a given academic year. And there is also a cumulative program level loan cap, which students cannot exceed over the course of their entire degree program. Again, this is to make sure the debt burden will be sustainable for students. And these loan caps are also found in the list of eligible degrees available in the Dream.Us website. So you can see both annual and cumulative program level loan caps for every single eligible degree in that list. So having said this about maximum loan amounts, we do strongly advise students to exhaust other funding sources and only use loans as the last resort funding option. We'll talk about this more later. So other aspects of the loan program here, I did want to mention that there is a 0.25% interest rate discount incentive for those enrolling in autopay. There won't be any late charges or prepayment penalties, but there is a standard return payment fee of $25. So let's move on to the repayment plans once you have taken out the loan. This should actually be split as your in-school years and your post-graduation years. While you're in school, you have two repayment options. The default option for all students will be full deferment of principal and interest, meaning you're not expected to make any payments towards your loan while you're in school. The other option while you're in school is to make a $25 per month payment so that you can start reducing your outstanding debt amount ahead of time. Now moving on to what happens once you've graduated and your 6 months grace period has ended and you are expected to start making repayments. After graduation, you will be automatically placed on an equal principal and interest plan. And this amount, which we call PNI, is the amount calculated as the consecutive monthly payments of principal plus interest that are necessary to pay the loan in full within the remaining number of months in the repayment period. So for those who find they are unable to make the full PNI payment in a given month, alternative payment plans will be available, such as, for example, a period of up to 12 months of interest-only payments over the life of the loan. Here, I just want to highlight that if you can make additional or larger payments, this will actually help lower the overall cost of your loan. And there's never any penalty to repay early. And finally, so that you are aware, there are also forbearance options which apply for times of financial stress or other specified documentable and verifiable reasons, such as temporary hardship, active duty military, medical residency, or disaster forbearance. But something to note here is that forbearance periods are capped and will extend the maturity of the loan by the duration of that forbearance period. Okay, so I know this is a ton of information, so don't worry, we can go over any questions you may have during the Q&A time. And right now I'm just going to pass it over to Ayush, who will go over some of the key loan terminology.
Excellent, thank you so much, Feva. I'll also just say that a lot of the loan terminologies that we're going to cover here are complicated. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we will cover them in the Q&A section. But in terms of loan terminology, we wanted to start off with the total cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is the total amount that it takes for a student to go through graduate school. That includes your tuition and fees, your housing, your living expenses, the cost of books and supplies, transportation, and even things like the cost of your personal computer. We like to split up the cost of attendance into two buckets. There's the tuition and fees, which are pretty straightforward, which is what the institution charges you for being part of the institution and going to all your courses. And then there's the living expenses section. Living expenses is largely discretionary, and it can vary based on individual circumstances. In general, cost of attendance is determined by the school, but the living expenses, just given the variability, is largely discretionary. And so we strongly encourage that you can reduce your living expenses to the extent that it's possible, so that you're not borrowing as much and your overall loan amount is smaller. There's an example of cost of attendance on the right-hand side of this slide, in which the tuition and fees come up to about $85,000. And the living expenses are estimated to be $35,000, which is pretty standard for a 2 to 3 year program. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to put them in the chat window, and we can move on to debt to income ratio. Excellent. So I know a lot of you had questions already, and the debt to income ratio is complicated, so I'll try to go through this as carefully and as slowly as possible. But essentially, debt to income ratio is the ratio of your debt payments, including any interest that you expect, divided by the expected income. In general, experts recommend that your overall debt to income ratio, or DTI, should be less than 30 to 35% of your gross income, which means all of your debt, which includes grad school loans, car payments, mortgage payments, and so on, should be less than 30 to 35% of your total gross income. For this grad loan program, we're using 15% DTI as a key basis for determining which degree programs are eligible. And that is largely based on the fact that we want to make sure that students don't overborrow. And it also allows for students to get to a reasonable and sustainable debt repayment. I'll walk you through an example, which is in the blue box in the middle, of how we calculate the DTI. So the first step is to calculate how much you need to borrow. The example here is that the total cost of attendance is $90,000, but this individual has savings, scholarship, and aid. And so the estimated loan is actually only $45,000. Once we've calculated how much you need, we need to calculate what the monthly payment will be after graduation. And so in this case, assuming a 7.2% interest rate, which was the interest rate for the last academic year, and again, that will change this coming year, and assuming a 10-year repayment cycle, the estimated annual debt payment will be about $7,938 per year. The next step is to estimate the earnings that you would expect once you graduate. In this example, it's a Master's of Public Health degree, which is estimated to earn about $55,576. A lot of times this estimated income is reported by institutions, and it's also available on publicly listed sources like the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So once we have both those numbers, the estimated annual debt payment and the estimated annual income, we just divide the estimated debt by the estimated income to calculate what the debt to income ratio is, which in this case is 13%. Students are only eligible to borrow up to the loan cap of their degree program, which is set at that 15% debt to income ratio expected. But we, again, strongly encourage that students only borrow as much as they need and as little as possible, just given the fact that these loans do accrue interest, which we'll talk about on the next slide. One other thing just to flag is that all of the loan caps are available, as we mentioned earlier, on the DreamUS's website and on the Scholar Hub. Excellent. The last key terminologies are capitalization, accrued interest, and loan term. And we'll spend a little bit of time on this as well. So capitalization sounds really complicated, and it is, but it's basically just the process of adding all of the accrued and unpaid interest to the principal balance of the loan. Accrued interest is the portion of the interest that is accumulated and not been paid. So a note here is that interest accrues even while you're in school and in the grace period. Even though you're not required to make payments, you're still accruing interest. The loan term is the number of years or months that a borrower needs to make monthly payments to repay the loan amount with the full interest. One other note here is that we talked a little bit about forbearance in the past couple of slides. If forbearance is taken, the loan terms typically accrue interest during that forbearance period. And also the loan term is typically extended given the forbearance period and the no payments in that period. That said, forbearance is definitely a good option for borrowers. It's much better than missing a payment or going into default or delinquency, which has other effects around it. One other thing to note is that the higher the loan amount, the higher the interest that accrues. And so again, borrowing as little as possible, as much as you need is just critical, is of critical importance. I will walk through one of the examples that's on the right-hand side. So in this case, there's a student that needs to take a $20,000 loan over a 4-year period for a 4-year degree for a total of $80,000 of the loan. The interest for this loan starts accruing as soon as the first disbursement is made. And so what that means is that for the first year, $20,000 is accruing interest. For the second year, $40,000 is accruing interest, and so on. And that actually relates to $17,280 of interest accrued on an $80,000 loan. And this is again assuming the 7.2% interest rate that we had in the last academic year. So given that the total capitalized balance is a combination of the $80,000 plus the $17,280, which adds up to $97,280. And that is the balance that needs to be repaid throughout the repayment period, which in the left-hand side is over 10 years, and then the right-hand side is over 20 years. One other thing to note here is that a longer term, a 20-year term in this case, means smaller monthly payments. You can see the difference there. In a 10-year loan term, the monthly payment would be $1,165. In a 20-year repayment term, that's only $777. But because it's a longer term and you're accruing interest, there's actually more that you're totally repaying. So if you see the total repaid line, there's a lot more in the 20-year term, just given the fact that you're accruing interest every year. So again, I'll just reiterate, the less you need to borrow, the lower your DTI, the lower your term of your loan is, and the lower amount you overall have to repay. Great, and again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat, and back to you, Beva.
Thank you, Ayush. Okay, so before ending this presentation, we quickly wanted to point you to other loan options that are available for students with DACA status that want to attend graduate school. Just so that you are aware, just in case the Dreamers Graduate Loan Program isn't the right fit for you. So this slide outlines other programs available, such as Empower, Ascend, SoFi, Discover, or Earnest. I'm not going to walk through each one of them, but we do encourage students to do the research to find the lowest cost, best possible terms for your loan. So when you're evaluating these other loan options, be sure to always compare the APR or annual percentage rate across lenders to understand the true cost of borrowing. So as we mentioned before, the APR is that bottom line number that can easily be compared with rates from other lenders.
Okay.
And also be sure to understand the terms and conditions of the loans, because different lenders can offer dramatically different options. So it's important to check if, for example, they offer friendly repayment or deferment options. All right, so this takes us to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your attention so far. As a final note, I wanted to point out that the application for the 2022-2023 academic year will open mid-May. When it opens, you will be able to find a link to the application by going to the TheDream.Us Scholar Hub and navigating over to the Graduate Loans tab, which has been the link that has been shared on the chat during this session. So now we wanted to use the spare time for a Q&A to answer any questions you may have or clarify anything that we have covered.
Great, thank you so much for that. We actually have a poll. We wanted to see how many of you are going to be or thinking of borrowing for the academic 2022-2023 year. And so we're going to launch it. And just FYI, the 2022-2023 academic year includes the fall, spring, and summer. So just know that that's what academic year is. So people are taking the poll. We are seeing we're 22% there. So we're just going to wait a few more minutes to allow people to submit their answers. And practically, we just want to know if you're planning on taking out a loan through the Dreamer Graduate Loan Program for the 2022-2023 academic year. And just give us your best estimate for the loan amount you will be needing for the upcoming year. Okay. So I'm going to close it in a few more seconds. All right, hopefully everybody got to participate, and we're gonna pull in if you want. Here, we're gonna share the results for you all to see. So 15% of you said that yes, that you're looking at borrowing less than $10,000. 23% of you said that yes, between $10,001 to $30,000. 15 are looking for loans between $30,000 and $50,000, and some of you are looking, 15% of you are looking for loans that are over $50,000, and there are 31% of you that are not taking out any loans for this year. Wonderful. Okay, great. So we will now take any questions. So you can either raise your hand and let us know that you are interested in asking a question, or you can put it in the chat. So, so a question came in asking, can you review the loan approved institutions? So I'm not sure, Kayla, what that means, but you can go to the Dream.Us website. Sarana has been graciously putting in the link for us where you can see there the information on the loans, and you'll be able to see there the list of institutions, which are more than 200 institutions across the US that are approved for this loan program. Okay, so Karen, go ahead. You have a question. You can take yourself off mute and ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask about the debt to income ratio. So is that calculated based on like current debt and salary or estimated income after grad school?
That's a great question. I'll send that over to Ayush.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So when we calculate that debt to income ratio for eligible degrees, we're looking at the estimated income after graduation. And so that's what's capped at 15%. When you calculate debt to income for yourself, then you can actually use your own earnings. But for the purpose of this loan program, we're just looking at estimated income, and that's based on all the publicly available data. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So we're getting a lot of similar questions around the eligible degrees. So one question is, what if your degree is not on the list of eligible degrees? Will we still have a chance to apply for the loan? So what I would say is send me an email with the information and then we can look at it and assess. But the reason why not all degrees are there is because there are many degrees that the loan to income ratio is really high, that taking out a loan to get the degree just doesn't make sense because of the amount of money that you'll be making after you get the loan. So we are conscious of that and wanted to make sure not to set anybody up for failure, having this big loan repayment that they have to do but not being able to make the payment. So that's the reasoning behind some of the why some graduate programs are not on the list. Okay, so let's see other questions. My grad program starts in July. Will the loan program be available for the summer of 2022?
Happy to take that as well, Gabby. We will be opening the application in May, so you absolutely will be ready for July.
Okay. I saw that there was a question about part-time graduate degree programs.
Those are also eligible. So anything that's part-time is absolutely eligible as long as it's one of the eligible degrees that's listed. And again, if your degree is not listed, then reach out to Gabby and we can look into it.
So a great question, Sophia, about the graduate scholarship program. So right now, we are just going to be opening the program every year from June 1st to August 15th. We have not decided if we are able to do it in the spring for some folks that weren't able to apply for the loan during the fall period time. That has a lot to do with bandwidth and also just being able to have enough funding. So for now, the only period that somebody is eligible to apply for this scholarship program is from June 1st to August 15th. And that means that you must have already taken out a loan either this spring or during the May period, May through, I don't know when we're thinking of closing the loan program, but during that time. All right, so let's see, we're getting lots of questions. Does the interest start accruing while in graduate school or only after graduating? I guess that's another Ayush question.
Happy to take that as well. So the interest rate starts accruing even while you're in graduate school. It's typically, it accrues as soon as the loan amount is disbursed to your institution. So if you take out a $10,000 loan and those $10,000 go in July, then as soon as those $10,000 reach the university, your interest starts accruing.
Okay. Let's see. So in regards to knockout criteria, can you not have any accounts currently or previously 60 days past due? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, it's 60 days.
Okay. And one of the things that we do suggest is that you work with the financial coaching. They'll be able to help you figure out what you can do in essence with your credit to be able to pay off some of those debts that you have to be able to be ready to apply for, in essence, the loan. All right, let's see. Is there an income requirement we have to meet or have to be able to qualify for the loan program?
So happy to take that, Ayush, if you want. There is no current income requirement. The DTI we calculated with estimated income once you graduate.
So Jesse, I think trying to read your question, I think what you're trying to say is when will we be able to apply for the program once the application opens? So mid-May, we're aiming for May 16th, but this is why it's really important that you are checking your email and the information that we're sending out from TheDream.Us. We will let you know, send out an email letting everyone know when the round for the loans open up. And Maurilo, you have a question. You raised your hand. Go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I just had a quick question. For the financial coaching, what kind of information should we have before going into it, like other than just the tuition rate and like personal information about like credit and stuff like that?
That's actually a really great question. I think that what I've been hearing is that the first session really is a get to know kind of session. And you can have other sessions afterwards where you can go in deeper. So what I would say is just, be ready to ask a lot of questions and just have the information you mentioned ready to go so that you can have a good initial conversation with the coach. I don't know if anybody else, Ayush, Hannah, Danielle, have other suggestions.
No, I would say that's exactly right, Gabby. It's based on your individual circumstances. So whatever you're looking to get out of the coaching session, I'd just have those materials prepared.
Okay, and I think it's really important to highlight again the point that Ayush put in the chat. There is no income requirement for the loan, and there's also no check for your credit score either. They will be looking at your credit report to see if you have any negative markings in your credit, like if you have bankruptcies, loans that you haven't been able to pay back, or late payments, but they will not look at your credit score. So that's really important to know. So Karen asked, would people with current debt, such as a mortgage, still be eligible to apply for the loan program? That's another great question. And I think what we'll add is not just mortgages, but also car payments, for example. Ayush, you want to take that one?
Yeah, happy to. It's actually just messaging, but I'll just say it. So absolutely, yes, they are. And it all just goes back to what Gabby was just saying about the credit knockout criteria. That's the only thing that matters. So if you have other debt, that's okay as long as you're continuing to pay them. The only thing we'd urge you to think about is with your personal debt to income ratio, don't want that to be so high. So if you have a lot of debt already, then find ways of getting scholarships or grants or anything else to reduce the amount of loan that you need to do, which is just critical.
All right, so I think we have gone through all the questions. Was there any question that we did not get to answer? You can either put it in the chat or raise your hand and ask the question. Luz, go ahead.
Yes, hi everyone. I had a question. I know Gabby answered it on the chat, but I wanted to know, let's say you applied for a scholarship and you got it. It covers some of the tuition. It gets sent back to the loan, so then it gets, I don't completely understand. So it goes to the school and the school gives like the refund to the loan, and then the rate is lower, or I'm not sure if that question is clear. But like, let's say you got a scholarship with the amount that you applied for decrease, and then would that 10% be lowered? I mean, the 10-year be lowered, or the 20-year loan like repayment lower?
Ayush, do you want to take that, or yeah?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So if you're getting a scholarship from your institution already, outside of the DreamUS scholarship program, if you're getting a scholarship from your institution, then when you go for your loan amount, you just wouldn't request that amount at all. If you get the scholarship through the DreamUS program, which is what Gabby was referring to earlier, your loan amount would just be reduced. In most cases, it won't change your loan term. It'll just change the total amount that you have to borrow. So if it was earlier, as an example, you were taking a $50,000 loan and you get a $10,000 scholarship, what it will change is that your total loan amount goes down from 50,000 to 40,000 and everything else stays the same.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And usually what happens is that, so when you are requesting a loan, you are going to also need to provide from your institution how much money the cost of attendance is, right? So it needs to, in essence, make sense to how much money the school is telling you that it's going to cost for tuition and fees and other costs. Once you've been approved and you are getting that loan, there is a conversation, in essence, for lack of better words, that happens between the loan folks and your institution to double check and make sure that that is the right amount. What we're hoping that happens is that once you get the $10,000 scholarship, and the scenario that I used to put, right? So you borrow 50,000 was transferred to your school from the loan amount. But then afterwards, you got a $10,000 scholarship from us. What the school would do is those extra $10,000 will refund it back to the lender. Does that make sense?
Yes. And then would that count for merit scholarships and outside scholarships in addition to that?
So yes, but hopefully you are already, if you already know that you're getting all those scholarships, you should take all of that into account and not borrow more than what you need.
Okay. And then what if you don't know about the private scholarship just yet because the decisions haven't come out yet?
So that's another good question. I think, applying, you can start the process of getting pre-approved for a loan. And then if you haven't gotten the loan yet, but you get word of the scholarship, then you can work with Funding You to change the loan amount.
Okay, that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Luz. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, Karen, go ahead.
Sorry, last one. Is there a way for an applicant to check if they have any like dings on their credit report that would otherwise knock them out during that criteria check?
Yes, this is exactly what the financial one-on-one coaching is for. They'll work with you. They will do a soft pool of your credit, so that doesn't affect your credit score. And they'll be able to look over with you what your report is showing.
Thank you so much.
You got it. So Maria, you're asking, can you get pre-approved like a year before? So I wouldn't advise getting pre-approved a year before just because many things can change. So I would, if you want to do the financial coaching, go ahead and schedule that and start working with them. But I personally, I wouldn't recommend you starting the loan process a year in advance just because many things can change. All right, so Beba, Danielle, Ayush, is there anything else you want to add or say before we end?
Nothing from my end. I mean, thank you all for joining. It's just so nice to hear from you all. And if you have any other questions, again, chat with us, Slack us, email us, whatever works for you. We're happy to answer any questions.
Yes, and if you have any questions, like we said about your institution that is maybe it's not on your list or your degree program, please send me an email and I will work with the team to figure out what is going to be the decision on that. And then lastly, don't forget that the first step in all this process that is really crucial is for you to do the financial coaching. So go ahead, click on that link that we put in the chat, or also you can go to the DreamBus website and see the information there, or the emails that we've been sending, that also has the link. You can have these coaching sessions on your own time. You can look at the Calendly calendar and see what works best for you. So we really highly suggest that you start the process of getting your coaching first with a financial coach and get ready to be able to apply for the loan. All right, so really quickly, somebody asked me to share my email. So my email is gabby.pacheco@TheDream.Us, and I'm gonna quickly put it in the chat. Wonderful. So thank you all so much for joining us today for this presentation. If you have any other further questions that come to mind, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.